I joke around with people like, if I could be in the toilet paper business, man, I'd be in the toilet paper business because it's recession proof. So I sort of try to take the corollary, like, hey, I want to be in the stuff in the defense industrial base. It's just a grimy, got to happen all the time, right? That's where you want to be. The stuff we're in is not that sexy, but it's stuff that's got to get done. And if you're in that, you're probably going to weather the storms better. And ultimately, you have to build resilience as a business.
Hey everyone, and thanks for listening to another episode of DIB Innovators. Today I'm speaking with John Albers, founder and CEO at Albers Aerospace. John, thanks for joining today.
You bet. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it. Excited to be
here. This is exciting for me. So another military aviator joining a podcast, doing some great things in the entrepreneurial space, yet still taking care of the warfighter. So thanks for your service.
Yes, sir. And to you. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much. So let's just kick this off. I think your background is unique. I'd love to hear about that. And then how did you find yourself, now founding and running an awesome aerospace company?
Yeah. So spent 24 years in the Marine Corps. Like you got to the rank of colonel. I joke around with people. I'm waiting for the commandant to call me and tell me he made a mistake. I shouldn't have been promoted to colonel. I really did think I was going to be stop at lieutenant colonel, but I wanted to be an aviator since I was a kid. My dad was an Air Force guy. He flew backseat RC-135s and B-47s and all that. And so I knew I wanted to be an aviator, and I got to go do it. So I literally lived my boyhood dream, right? That's just amazing. Not a lot of guys get to do that. What happened for me, I flew the Herc first, then I ended up going to T-37s. I just wanted to try something different, fly a different airplane. And then figured out like, hey, if I want to stay in this thing, I really want to be a test pilot. And put in for it, got picked. Great. That's awesome. Do the year of school at the Navy Chest Pilot School, 3-year payback. Now, I've now been away from the Marine Corps for 7 years. Like, you got to get back to the gun club. And the monitor tells me, it's time for you to do a desk job, buddy. And he leaves me at the Naval Air Systems Command, which basically at that point made me a Terminal 04. And so I'm, of course, bummed. But you got to do what the Marine Corps tells you to do. And in that tour, the Marine Corps decides they want to create acquisition professional MOS. And I get picked in that first group because I was like, this is my best chance to get promoted and keep trucking, right? And so I got picked, and I was a plank holder of that, as we refer to it in the Naval Service, plank holder of that MOS. And that really is why you and I are talking today, because that experience, being the customer, helping the Marine Corps buy C-130s and I was dealing with Sikorsky my last tour, helped the Navy on a bunch of other programs as a member of some staffs in there. I spent a year as the aide to ASNRDA. The ASALT equivalent, right? That really opened my eyes to the industrial base challenges that are openly talked about in the newspaper today. And so being a test pilot guy, I'm a little bit on the crazy side. And so you ask like, hey, how'd you end up there? I knew I didn't want to be an airline guy. I thought it'd be fun for a little while and then I'd probably get bored. It's just who I am. And I thought, what better way to try to contribute and let's go build something in chapter 2, just reinvent ourselves. I did try a little retail operation. This is for the people who think successful people are always just successful. I tried a retail operation right after I retired with my brother-in-law, and we got our butts kicked bad. Totally got smoked, man. Lost a ton of money. But I learned out of that. I mean, I had a choice, quit. And I did go work for one of the bigs for about 6 months to lick my wounds and then re-engage and convince my wife I should be able to try again. And so she was kind enough to let me. But I learned a lot, right? So when you talk to people about success, they probably had failures. They may not talk about them all the time, right? But part of the journey is I got my butt kicked. And so that really caused me to rethink my approach, how I want to do things, how I'm going to think about the finances and everything else. And so anyway, just dove in, man. I didn't want to be laying on my deathbed wondering if I could. And so by the grace of God, we have had an incredible journey to the point where you and I are talking. There's no great explanation. I'd love to tell you I could see it all coming and had a perfect plan and everything else, but I didn't. And yeah, we're having a lot of fun. So
that's great. Yeah. Trials and failures matter. Similar experience. Started a company and then, found myself here. So yeah, it's definitely a journey. So when your acquisitions for Department of Navy did you have a good relationship with Crayola and crayons?
Yes, absolutely. Marine beat, man. That's what we do. We like.
Sorry, I had to throw that in there.
For sure. Yeah. And Sean Stackley was the Assistant Secretary of the Navy in that role. He was a former Navy officer. He was a retired Navy officer. He was been a captain in the Navy. So yeah, he used to bust my chops all the time, right? We'd have a good time. But he was a great American. Learned a lot from Sean, actually. learned a lot.
Yeah. So you guys, you have a strong veteran-led foundation, obviously, with your background. How does that background, influence your company's culture, mission, and roadmap?
I tell people a lot of times I describe myself as a 32-year-old businessman in a 56-year-old man's body, because the math there is 24 years in between, right? So in the service, they teach you a lot about leadership. I think I learned, especially as a test pilot, I learned to be comfortable being uncomfortable, right? Which is really important, I think, as an entrepreneur and a business person. And then I also learned about culture and some of the softer things, but they don't teach you finance. They don't teach you how banks think. They don't teach you all of those things. So that's why I describe myself as the 32-year-old businessman in the 56-year-old man's body. So I think the veteran experience, and then, like I talked about at the beginning, like I was the customer once. I understand, I mean, things change with the customer, but fundamentally, I understand how the customer thinks at a system level, systemically, where to go figure out what's important to them today. Because fundamentally, our thing is I want to solve problems. Like building a company is great, but if it doesn't solve people's problems, who cares? Right. And so we can talk, and this is the way we go. When we talk to our customers, we'll tell them, they'll be like, hey, tell us what you do. I'm like, well, why don't you tell us what you need? What's hurting your head? We'll see if we can solve it. That's more important to you as the customer. Otherwise, I'm boring you, especially if nothing that I do matters for you, right? So I've tried to stay really focused on in the journey to build, focusing on what my customers need, right? And what there's some thesis involved in there, and what I think the industrial base needs based on my reading and study and talking to people. And again, want to be a part of problem solving, right? Because I think in the end, when we die, they're going to talk about the kind of person we were and the impacts that we had on other people and on the community, the context around us, not the size of our bank accounts. And so that's what I think about all the time, because I want to leave a legacy. I got 4 kids, and I want them, their old man was a good guy that did things the right way, tried hard to do right by everybody, and really made a difference, right, for the warfighter, because that's something they know I'm passionate about it. And I want that to be a enduring legacy.
Well, many props to you, sir. That's awesome.
Thanks.
Very cool.
Yeah.
So at a high level, what did you start Albers Aerospace to do, and what are you guys now doing or solving for DoD and national security?
Yeah. We're not the exact same as we were when we started, right? Because I wasn't smart enough to know I could go ask people for money. I didn't have any when I started. So we started off doing like CETA, they would say, systems engineering, support, like directly to the government, right? Program offices. There was people there who knew I would deliver good value for them. So we started off doing that. I actually built out a core engineering footprint at Naval Air Systems Command. And then all along, I had an idea that I wanted to offer different things, not just systems engineering. I really had a passion. I wanted to get into manufacturing somehow, some way, and I wanted to do airplane stuff. And so, but the services piece became my cash flow, my consistent cash flow, that then allowed me to maybe branch into some other things, take a little bit of risk, go other places. And so I figured early on, I determined like, hey, if I really want to make an impact to the industrial base, I need to get sort of on the other side of the table, not supporting the government directly. I need to be out making products and solutions that they want to buy, that are relevant to them. So that was a hard pivot. That I would say happened so I was solo from summer of 15 to summer of 18, with just me. Then we took off. I had about 10 people when we ended 2018. So the 2019, 2020 timeframe, COVID's going on, all that. We went from $525K in revenue to 3 million to 10 million. It was in that time that I started to transition things from a capability set, started to branch a little bit into manufacturing, and then tried to start thinking bigger about, okay, how do I get more of the product capability and solutioning, again, when I have no money? But I determined, after getting my butt kicked on my first business evolution, that what I did was I read Warren Buffett like 20 times. I read every letter he ever wrote over and over and over again, because he would talk about value creation from a business perspective and everything, right? So I decided I was going to take a really long view, not take distributions, don't think short, try to build value, not just quote unquote for the family, but also the more valuable I built the company, the more capable it would be and able to do more things for the warfighter. Because I mean, again, that's what I wake up every day and want to do. And so I'm thankful that I caught that idea in getting my butt kicked in reading. And because it's really what enabled us. We just in November, this past November, just took an outside minority investment. Everything else has been just total internal growth.
Wow.
Using not we are leveraged, but we're not highly leveraged. So moderate leverage. What I did was I just found really good deals. I made sure I found great acquisitions. We've acquired 12 companies to date. And
Wow.
so, because I figured out in 21, if I really want to achieve my goal, I'm not going to be able to do this organically. I got to go get capability, right? Get customers and capability through acquisitions. And so, again, sometimes when you don't know everything, you just go. And I didn't know I could go ask people for money. So I just took off, man. Started banging on banks' doors. And I had a guy named Ryan Morfin who came into my life in 22. He's a shareholder and I'm part of my board now. And Ryan really helped me think about, he's a former finance guy, how banks think, started teaching me about that. And so, I love learning. I think that's another thing that I learned in the service now that I'm sitting here noodling on that question. Because we're constantly getting PME, right? You're getting PME all the time because you got to keep going. You get the next level and you got to learn something. And so
Professional military education.
That's right. Yeah, thank you for the acronyms there. The professional military education, right? You got to keep learning every grade, right? There's another thing you got to learn. And so studying history, studying business stories, nothing new under the sun. Let's go learn how other people succeeded. Try to find kernels inside of there, right? So anyway.
That's fantastic. Well, and props to you for building that internally, because now you're in so much of a stronger position. I mean,
Yeah,
12 companies in that process. That's pretty.
Yeah. And the dirty little secret is I've never done this before. So every day is a 2-day where I'm trying to, I got to stay inside the cockpit, right? We talk about, you fly in an airplane, the guy's like, he's not in the cockpit, right? Mentally, he's back hanging onto the stabilizer, trying to get in there. I got to stay 5 minutes in front of the jet. I got to be out in front, right? And so teaching myself and to how to think, finding mentors in my life to hey, what are the gaps? What's going on in the industrial base today? Okay, you had an idea 10 years ago. Is it the same? What's different? Where are things going? And how do we position ourselves to be relevant in that respect? And then managing people, which that's what we learned how to do as military vets, right? So
Absolutely.
yeah.
So it sounds like you've got now kind of multiple verticals within your company. What do you think of, are you trying to vertically integrate all that, or are these just different capability sets you're offering, different,
Yeah, so that's a great question. There is the answer is yes to both. Okay, there's 3 verticals for us: industrials, defense. So industrials is all the manufacturing stuff, which is about 60% of the portfolio of the company. Defense is services, and then we have a small innovation cell. I believe in defense tech. I'm not smart enough to bet my whole company on like one solution or this idea, this concept. I'm just not that smart. I was a 2.9 guy at A&M, right? 2 strikes against me, A&M and a Marine. But so I believe in innovation, and we have that as a cell. But services provides that predictable cash flow, helps me keep my rates low, and gives us some diversification. And then the industrials, where we're really making stuff. The idea here is innovation incubates something. Defense we would sell it as a service, and industrials built it, right? So I do want to be as vertical as I can. I think there's some interesting things. When you and I were young, it was, hey, everything's segregated and different, but things are swinging back to, hey, how much vertical integration do you have, and can you control more? It's interesting how that's kind of swung back the other way. It's not going to be 100% for us, but we're going to try to control as much of it as we can, because then we control schedule better and outcomes, and the customer wants to be able to choke one person that when it's not working, right? And if I sit there, I'm blaming Dave's problem. He didn't do his job. He didn't get metal finishing done on time. Well, if it's me that's also doing that, then I have no excuse. And so, but it also allows me the flexibility if a customer's needs change. Hey, it's on me, and we can more than likely handle that change, and without having to do major disruption. So
a lot of flexibility with that, for sure.
Right.
So to share with folks, kind of what are some standout programs or contracts or capabilities you've delivered, just at a high level? What are some?
Yeah, so we've morphed back to your question, like, hey, is it today what you thought? I didn't think I'd be as heavy in manufacturing as I am, but I do, like, early on, I started to see, like, hey, there's a defense industrial problem with manufacturing, a lot of demographic issues, meaning, a lot of older people and getting rid of businesses. We don't teach trades anymore. People don't want to go to school. Maybe we still need manufacturing. So I got on this. I was an industrial engineering major in college, so I've always been fascinated by manufacturing. The idea of, like, I should go grab that capability, as much of it as I can. And then how do we've got we use robots. Like, we're really pushing into the advanced manufacturing part as much as we can, and trying to engage with the primes on how they think about it and how they want it thought about at the tier 2, tier 3 level. And so, this capability in building that out, what's sort of happened is we morphed into a weapons manufacturer. Like we manufacture a lot of weapons components. We're not doing one particular program. We're on a whole bunch of missile programs doing one little slice of each one, or maybe two components. The only thing we're not doing right now is engines and fins. But we do front end stuff. We're doing middle. That part's kind of fun. It's just sort of happened. And that's from containers that they have to go into that are, and it's not just a box, man. These are like real containers that could survive a 6-foot drop and, airtight welding. They're complicated little boxes to the components they're in, plus parts for, F-35, F-16. So we've developed, we're really touching most of the major things. Now, I'm not on the brand new thing, but my engineering team, we're doing digital engineering. We've got 30 engineers that do digital engineering. We're doing really cool stuff with GE and leading edge things, right? So we're in a lot of their IRAD or early programs related to new programs that the customers are looking at, think F-47 and this FAXX thing that the Navy's thinking about, right? So we want to dabble a little bit, but I joke around with people like, if I could be in the toilet paper business, man, I'd be in the toilet paper business because it's recession proof. So I sort of try to take the corollary, like, hey, I want to be in the stuff in the defense industrial base. It's just a grimy, got to happen all the time, right? That's where you want to be. The stuff we're in is not that sexy, but it's stuff that's got to get done. And if you're in that, you're probably going to weather the storms better. And ultimately, that's what you have to build resilience as a business. Can you be resilient and handle the ebbs and flows? Just like in a warfighting unit, you got to be able to take some blows. And how are you going to defeat the enemy, turn inside of their circles? We talk about maneuver warfare, the OODA loop, all those things, right? Those principles all matter. We may not talk about them the same way in business, but they're applicable. And so try to think about that as a business too, right? Diversifying across and then being able to, I want our company to be a one-stop shop, knowing a customer will never do a one-stop shop, right? But if I am a one-stop shop, that probably means I understand a lot of things and can address matters, across the board for the customer. And so we've found success in it so far. It's been working out. Again, not perfect. We own our mistakes. Culturally, we're really big on that part. So
that's great.
Yeah.
Not surprising. Not surprising at all. How about I've had a lot of manufacturers on the podcast. It's a very different, kind of space, like to actually produce CNC machines and the capability sets. Yeah. What for you has been kind of the biggest eye-opening moment getting into like advanced manufacturing and manufacturing as a whole?
So the defense sales cycle's slow. Manufacturing's really slow. Like you can't just fix it in a quarter. The quoting, the winning, then now you got to go get materials. Now you got to build. Like, that process is really freaking long. And so if your company's not performing well, and if you don't price things right, you could be hosed quickly. And so that to me has been surprising, I guess. Part of it, when I was my last tour on active duty was the 53K team lead. I was not the PM. The PM was another colonel that was selected. I was his guy running the team. And so I was in a lot of shops because they were behind schedule, and I'm in there trying to figure out like, what are the problems, right? You get in there and you find these mom and pop shops, man, and they're trying super hard, but they're not resourced right. They don't have they don't have the visibility into what they're doing. There's just not a lot of sophistication, for lack of a better word. And the balance there is they don't need the sophistication of a prime, but they got to be more sophisticated than a QuickBooks and or a notebook. Like we bought a company that they kept their books in, graph paper, like crazy.
Yeah,
that scared a lot of people off, but it was a great little business, made a lot of money. And gave us amazing capability. And so I took the risk, right? We'll do it. So I think some of those things have been surprising to me. The other thing is, CapEx is real, and planning for that is also, because we both know plans never survive first contact with the enemy. Neither does your business plan. The business school tells you got a 5-year plan and you got this and you got that. And yeah, great. The next day after it's dry, it's wrong. It's wrong. And so I think that's also been surprising, not surprising, right? Intuitively, you and I know it after everything we learned in this service. But when you're based, I tell a lot of young guys that are thinking about doing their own business, I'm like, hey, man, you can make a spreadsheet say anything you want. You can make the numbers look good. You can do amazing margins on there. Now try to convert that to cash and make payroll, right? Like, can you? Because that's freaking hard. It's just hard. It's a lot harder than anybody says it is. But, you got to do it if you're going to survive. So
what's your thoughts on advanced manufacturing, robotic manufacturing? Some of those, it seems like with robotics, you can shorten that window of, here's a new thing I need. Either I can 3D print it, or I have robots that can work over time and quickly pivot to something else. Yeah, I'll say. Are you seeing that, accelerate and change? Are you guys in the middle of that?
Yes, absolutely. I think, as a matter of fact, our CTO, I just told him that's his project for the year, is to really dive in on the manufacturing vertical and go understand, like, where is it going? Where does everybody else think it's going? Go hit the road and meet with people, because it is changing so fast. The 3D printing, which we're getting into, the standard CNC mill, lathe, all that normal stuff. Hey, when you and I were young guys, they quit doing trade schools, right? And having VOTEC at the high school went away because they believed everybody should go to college. That's a lie. And now we're going to suffer as a country because we don't have enough tradesmen that are willing to do those things. And so some of it is you got to get robots to do it, because otherwise you might not be able to do it, right? So the robots allow us to run a machine 21 hours a day, it's bar fed, it's doing all these things. And so, yeah, we should be thinking about advancement, and advanced manufacturing also includes digital engineering. And then my observation too is each one of the bigs, that's where I tend to focus on, right? The Boeings and the Lockheeds and et cetera. Their definition of advanced manufacturing is different. Every one of them has a different version of it. And which is also interesting when you think about the macro, like the customer, the Department of Defense and the respective services, they've got a vision of what advanced manufacturing is. Is that the same or different than the particular prime? And then how does that flow down? Everybody's still trying to figure that out. I want to be a part of that conversation. So I'm posturing us as, that's another thing that sort of falls out of our having those capabilities, having the digital engineering and the manufacturing capability. I can posture myself as somebody who can help you figure it out, how to implement it down further. Because again, small business guy doesn't want to spend, $2 million putting in digital engineering capability and having people that understand it. He doesn't want to do that. How's he going to make money? He's trying to keep his price as low as he can to win the work and cut the metal. And, he doesn't want the engineering firm over there to see his secret sauce, which is how he programs the spindle to cut faster than anything else, right? So he can be 4 minutes faster than the next guy, which allows him to price it lower. I mean, there's just a lot of little things inside of there that give you these cost efficiencies, or perceived ones, that you got to think about and try to figure out. So that's where the advanced part, I think, of manufacturing is going. It's not just, most people say, 3D printing. Well, it's a lot more than that. It's taking the robots and how do you flow the design all the way through, get rid of paper, still maintain configuration control, all of those things. So
how about manufacturing, workforce? You talked about it, that we're hurting, and I've talked to other folks. Are you part of any associations that help drive the idea that it's cool to get back to manufacturing? It's a good career path. And do you think, as you look from the outside in, or if you're in the middle of it, those efforts are working to get our youth thinking that it's so cool?
No, I'm not part of a formal organization that's doing that, but I am out talking about it all the time. And when I talk in my community, when I'm talking to young kids, I'm pumping trades. And I'm actually telling them, you want to be a guaranteed millionaire? Like, go be a tradesman. Don't go to, no knock on somebody who goes and studies English, but man, you go learn how to fix a toilet, or, go learn how to fix a toilet, put plumbing in, be an electrician, how to run a CNC machine. Like, dude, be an aircraft mechanic. Like, there's a lot of this stuff we're not gonna be able to put robots into. It's gonna take a human being. And if there's less of them, supply and demand will drive that their wages will be much higher. And then there's just going to become a reality that, some of them will start businesses and they'll offer as a service, and they'll be millionaires, multimillionaires probably, right? And so, which is really hilarious. It's almost hilarious when you think, like, 35 years ago, we got rid of VOTEC. It's like, oh, we're never going to need that. Like, what were people thinking, man? How did anybody think about, like, while they're going to the bathroom, that somebody's not going to have to fix that later, right? Like, holy cow. So I try to talk about it a lot. I think, to your point about getting out and advocating, I've only recently started to feel like I had a voice that I could say. Like, I've sort of I'm a confident guy, I'm out doing it, but getting my butt kicked initially has sort of made me like, I don't want to talk too much. I don't want to go out and advocate, because you're never really there, man. You're just never there. Somebody's always coming for you, right? Just like on the sports team, somebody's trying to get your slot. You got to outwork them, keep grinding. And so, but I think in the last, 6, 7, 8 months, I've started to realize like, hey, I probably haven't, there's enough credibility where I got a voice. I can go out and, give my 2 cents worth. Right. So I'm trying to do that in certain places, but I should probably, maybe you'll spur me on to greatness here. I'll go join some of those manufacturing things and get out there and be a part of it. Cause it's just true. We just have a problem, but it's going to take more than an association, right? It's going to take the community, if you will, writ large, the country buying into that those skills are, it's not looked down on. You're a plumber. It's not like, oh, you're a plumber or you're just a machinist. No, man, that guy's making something. That's what makes America great. Like really, it's, it's that we can make our own stuff. If we're just consumers, that's not good. We need to be making stuff. So
it is fascinating because it's easy to say, yeah, we need kids to go do that. But then when you have your own kids, there aren't many people that are like, all right, you're having fun in high school. I'm not sure colleges. You need to go do a trade. Like all of a sudden you failed as a parent. Like they would have this big, perspective on that. And it would be great if it could change, but it's easier said than done.
Yeah, for sure. Way easier said than that. Because now we got devices called phones that are like little computers that just tell everybody, hey, you can be a millionaire at 22 and you don't have to do anything. You can just squawk a little bit on a screen and get somebody to pay you for it, which is true in some cases, but those are rare birds, not the norm. And the rest of us got to go to work, and so you're battling that other messaging that's coming to our youth. But I do think we got to take that seriously. I don't think it's the government's, we should not look to our government to solve that problem. That's like, hey man, that's a community should be talking about that, right? Just as you're, who can better take care of those who are less fortunate? Well, the local people, right? If we just look to the government to solve all the problems, probably not going to get done real well because it's really hard to do those kinds of things well, despite the best of intentions. And so, again, you win the prize today for inspiring. So I gotta go figure out who I sign up to work with to get on a more of a platform to start talking about this. Because
I've talked to some folks. We may have to sidebar that. I've got some folks that you would, I think, really like to chat with. So what is, there are companies doing what you're doing. What is the, Albers Aerospace differentiator? What is your niche? You've got primes, you've got other non-traditionals.
Sure. Yeah.
What is your secret sauce?
I think our secret sauce is speed. Okay. Because the industrial base in general is slow. It's a slow sales cycle business. There's a lot of slow and it's just slow across the board. So speed is our sauce. Our broad capability set is our other. We are a one-stop shop. Again, not 100% personal solution or a perfect solution, but you can come to us and there's a whole lot we can do. In the early days, I had people tell me you're going to fail because you're trying to do too much. And I was like, okay, well, first I'm a Marine, so I'll probably kill myself trying to prove you wrong, right? You don't tell me I'm going to fail. Like I'll go die trying to prove you wrong. But, again, I think about diversification, weathering storms, and manufacturing has different cycles than services, and certain services but they're also priced really different, right? And so what I figured out early on is like mixing some of that, if it's done the right way, you can keep your costs down and bring value to the taxpayer. Because that's fundamentally, that's what I'm a taxpayer, you're a taxpayer. The government isn't some, third party that's out there that just has money. It's collecting it from its citizens to accomplish the ends it's trying to accomplish. And we should be, I'm red, white, and blue, and green in that order. Because I'm a taxpayer and a warfighter, former warfighter, right? And so I want to, hey, how can I attack this thing, keep my cost really low, and deliver a great amount of value? That's our other differentiator. I believe very strongly that now, again, we're not perfectly priced in every segment that we're playing in. We got work to do, but that's the goal, is to be a high value, lower priced provider who can still make good margins and make a difference. And so the other thing that I say that when we talk about as a team is we're building a puzzle, but we don't have the box to look at the picture. We don't know what the picture looks like exactly, but we're all smart enough. We've all seen different views, that if we look at the different pieces of the puzzle, we can fit some things together and really make a cool thing out of that. And that's kind of been our approach to acquisitions too, is buying capabilities. Can it fit with what we already have, or leverage it, if you will, amplify it and make it better, either through cross-selling or just making it better innately by itself? And so again, not a traditional, like, I'm looking for an ROI of 22% on my investment, yada, yada. I don't do the, I wasn't smart enough to go to Harvard Business School and approach it like a finance guy would. I approach it more like a knuckle dragger. And like, hey, this is a capability that's valuable to me and to the customer. And again, even if it's valuable to me would be secondary to valuable to the customer, because if it's valuable to me but not to the customer, I'm going to lose, right? So yeah, I think that's a lot of our secret sauce. And then it's our team that is playing in this broad spectrum of things, so we can be better and better informed. Therefore, it allows different people when they're talking to customers to talk about capability sets, and especially as we have a tightening defense industrial base, demographics are affecting it. Yeah, there's a lot of challenges there. So I think there's value in being basically a multi-service provider.
Yeah, that's great. So speaking of team, you've done some rapid growing the last couple of years. What is your leadership philosophy? The great thing, you're a mission-driven company. I think that really helps. But leadership philosophy, culture in mission-critical environment and company. I mean, what you're doing matters, and you need to deliver. So talk to me a little bit about how you look at your company, your folks, those pieces.
Sure. I'm biased. I told you before we hit record here, my family history is mostly Air Force. So my dad said, I knew your mother dropped you on your head when you were young, when I told him I joined the Marine Corps. But, I tried to bring the best of the Marine Corps culture, because not all some of the culture is needed for war fighting, right? For actually like, hey man, we got to go take the hill, be willing to face the bullets. But there's a lot of those elements that are very positive in a business environment. So I tried really hard to, again, imperfectly, to pull those principles into the way we operate. The Marine Corps got this little JJ did tie buckle and our leadership principles that we follow: know yourself, seek self-improvement, know your Marines and employ them in accordance with their capabilities. Change the word Marines to people, and it's the same thing, right? So tried to do that, value people for who they are. Like, everybody's valuable. We don't use the word employee in the company. We call them teammates. I'm a big roles guy. Like, we have a org chart, like I'm at the top, okay, whatever, but it's almost inverted is kind of how I practically live. Marines taught me the officer eats last. Like, you're the last guy that eats, man. Your men eat first, your people eat first. I still do that today. I did that at home. I would do that. I show that to my kids. I have 3 boys and a daughter. I tell them, like, dad eats last. Dad's the last guy that gets served. Now they're all grown men. When I'm in their house, they get to go last, right? Because it's their house. Well, I got to get them in their space, right? But that whole principle of, hey, and everybody's a leader. I talk about that too. Like, be a leader in your sphere. I don't just want, because you're in a leadership position, that means you're a leader and nobody else is. No, be thinkers. Be thinkers no matter what spot you're in. Because as a matter of fact, you might have a better chance of really influencing things the lower, quote unquote, you are in an org chart, because you're the one touching the customer or making the product. Like, be a leader, think, be different, right? So trying to encourage that. That is exhaustive and hard to do. I mean, it just is, right? It's a constant thing, but it's also super fun. And we measure our culture. We started doing that about 9 months ago, trying to measure it. Just, I don't want to be those guys who fooled themselves into thinking, hey, we got a pretty good culture. And then you measure the thing and you find out it's absolute garbage.
Yeah, you've got no clothes on.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I mean, sort of leadership, that's, that is something that, a lot of folks take out of the military, that mentality, but different it's not different. I would say, in the startup world, which you're still a startup probably. I mean, we're all startups, at some level.
Yeah.
And so urgency and risk failure often drive shifts from that servant leadership. And you're like, damn it, I just need this done and I need it right. And so how do you look at that? Because that's a challenge.
No, that's a great, So, okay, last week we have some new people on the finance team. I set them down, told them the story of the company, and then I told them, like, hey, listen, when people ask you what you do, I don't want you to say you're an accountant or you're an accounts payable clerk. I want you to say, when they say, what do? You say, I support the warfighter. Like, that's how I want you to describe what you do. Like, the thing that you do inside of that context, who cares? Like, you support the warfighter every day. We're not making donuts, To your point earlier, like, dude, that means something. And I take it even further. I'll just tell them, like, today, you guys got to influence somebody who's strapping themselves into an airplane or picking up a weapon, or supporting somebody that's doing that. So I constantly try to reinforce, that message. And then just talk about thinking all the time, just how we got to think, right? We got to think. Because if we're thinking, have a personal bias. I don't think very many people actually think much anymore. Their life's too noisy. They don't just get quiet and just think like, hey, what am I not thinking about? While I'm thinking about thinking, what am I not thinking about? Right? Like what's coming? What bat's going to hit me in the head? And how can I solve this problem differently? What's the risk, And so I also believe that back to sort of what's our competitive, I'll call it competitive advantage. We're far, far away from this yet. But I do think if I could create a team of thinkers that know that they're valuable regardless of what the role they have is super important. My boys played ice hockey, so I talk about hockey teams all the time because every role is on their board. Look, Ovechkin just gets the goal. He just set the record, right? He got 895. He beats Gretzky. He talked about the trainers, the staff. He was thanking all of those people when he's the guy whose name gets in the books, right? And it's true, man. It's the same thing in business on your team. You got all these people who maybe they never see they don't get the podcast interview or they don't get their picture taken in something. But the reason I'm on a podcast interview and get my picture taken is because those people are doing real work that's material and matters, and they're doing it well. And I think it starts here. And if I ever forget that, then it starts to crumble the further away from me that you get, right? So that's why I try to work really hard in remembering that. Like, don't ever get too full of yourself, man. You're just not that amazing. That's right. It's easy to start thinking, hey, I'm pretty good. Look what we've accomplished, right?
Look in the mirror, man. Come on.
Yeah, look in the mirror. Look at these dashing looks, right? Like fight that crap off, fight it off, fight it off, fight it off. Don't believe it. Because you're only as good as the people around you. And if I'm the smartest guy in the room, we're in trouble, man. We're in a lot of trouble. Now, if it's a hard working contest, again, I'll probably be in the top 5 there, but that doesn't mean I'm working smart either. So anyway.
So earlier you'd mentioned you had acquired 12 companies.
Yes, sir.
I think with the number. Tell me about one of the top 2 or 3 companies you're really excited about that's bringing unique capability sets or opportunities to Albers.
Yeah. So again, I do love the deal. If I'm honest, like I've learned about myself, I love the deal, man. I love like negotiating a deal, putting a deal together, getting it done. I really like that because it's a component of trying to do this mission thing, which is to be a value provider in the industrial base, right? So I'm a pilot. So we just acquired the assets of a company that does light attack aircraft. Just announced that on this earlier this week. We acquired them about a month ago. Thanks. And so just as a pilot guy who's kind of crazy about airplanes, like that's super cool. I always wanted that capability, and God brought this company into my circle about a year ago, and it took a while to get the deal done, but we got it done. We got a great team, and now we're an aircraft integrator, right? So we have engineering, touch labor. So we're not just doing touch labor. We're doing design work, integration, and the touch labor, like that full spectrum of aircraft integrator. So that's new, but I think that's a really powerful combination or a component to our thing. And then I think the other part is is manufacturing, because we're making something. I think the collection of our manufacturing acquisitions is really powerful, and it's mostly because it's needed really bad, and it's fun because we've I'd love to say it was intentional. In the 3 years ago, I wanted to go acquire a bunch of weapons things, but we've morphed into this. We do a lot of things in the weapons space, and from weapons containers to components. And so, hey, that's really important right now. Like we need it a lot. And so love to tell you I was so smart I could see it coming, but I wasn't. Sort of, I don't necessarily believe in luck, but we were working hard and doing things. And when the opportunity presented itself, we were there. So I think those are the things that come to mind when I think about. We're also doing some really cool stuff with the Reaper for the Marine Corps, which is the Marine Corps. Reaper's new for them. We're a part of a team with Amentum. So we got guys around the world, mostly in the Indo-Pacific, but around the world doing Reaper ops. That's super cool. I love talking about that. That was the first company I bought. That's what they did. And that sort of got me into the unmanned space. But that's a whole nother thing. Right.
Yeah.
Especially those guys who flew manned airplanes,
Definitely different, but boy, it's coming hot and heavy.
Yeah, it's coming. It's there. It's not just coming to you.
Yeah. So working with DoD, what's one thing you would change with how DoD works with smaller, mid-sized companies?
I think the one thing I would change is that we have very defined rules. You're either a small or a large. There is no middle ground. So the analogy I use with people is teenagers are 13 to 19. Those are all teenagers, right? I would never put my 13-year-old kid playing hockey on an ice rink with a 19-year-old where he could get checked by a 19-year-old. he'd kill him. He would literally wreck the kid. And that's kind of how our business structure is set up by the government and the SBA and all that. You're a small or you're a large. And so if you're $1 over, how they do their math, like you're a large. Well, now you probably don't have the resources to fight with a 19-year-old. And so if we want more competition and the primes need stronger intermediates, we've got to figure out a way to classify those things the right way and allow people, especially if we need it quickly, we got to figure out the right way. Because like somebody in our space, the way the rules are set up, it can be punitive really quickly. And so I think that's something I'd like to see changed. That to me is acquisition reform. I'm not trying to change how we do a contract and all this other stuff, which we've been trying to do the same thing 25 years and it's never working. Let's look, hey, if you want more competition, create the environment where competition, you can rapidly grow people into it and they're not penalized by their size, because you got to be big enough to do things at scale, and to get there takes size. And you can't be a small to do it, right? Because very few of them have the financial resources. And again, all that's super hard. It's hard to get there. So let's knock down the artificial, I would call them almost artificial barriers, like size classification, et cetera, right? So yeah, that's the one thing I think I'd do.
Yeah, that makes sense. Well, I could keep going because I know there's a lot of stories we haven't even addressed, but we'll wrap it up with one question final. So if there are what advice would you give to other veterans that are transitioning, or ones that are entrepreneurs or engineers trying to make a difference in the defense sector? What would you kind of give them as, a golden nugget?
Yeah, I'd say mentally reinvent yourself. Like there's a lot of hype about how good we are when we come out of the service. And while you're good when you come out of the service, you're not as good as you think you are, right? Because you and I both know this side of the world's different than that side. It just is. And if you try to be that person over there in this space, it's not going to work. So I sort of told myself again in 15, like, you know what? I think I got to put Colonel Albers in the closet. I just got to tell that guy to go. I'm going to hang him up on the closet. I'll let him come out when I'm in the right circle and it's kind of cool, or you're around a bunch of freaking other people who care. Because, here in McKinney, they don't know the difference really between a sergeant and a colonel. They don't know, and they don't care. They're all veterans, right? And so like put that thing away and then go back to like, hey, I'm a 32-year-old business person. I'm a 22-year-old business person. Develop that mentality, because if you do, you will, all of the good things that we got coming out of the service, I think will carry you further and faster into the civilian world in chapter 2, and you'll be able to be a person of impact. It's when you try to cling too much to the past that you're chained on the other side.
I couldn't agree with you more. I struggle with that. I mean, as I think a lot do,
Oh yeah.
And
for sure.
I had to eat a big piece of humble pie.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. Makes two of us, buddy. Makes two of us, man. I ate a lot of it. I mean, I just did, because you think, man, I'm pretty good. I used to walk in a room, people stood up.
Right.
A few months ago, I walked into a room, people freaking stood up, man. Now I'm looking around and nobody gives a rip, and by the way, all the things that I, thought were important and that mattered and were material and influenced there, all of a sudden out here they don't. And like, crap, I got to figure out again, how do you take the good? Because there's tons of good we get, but we do a little, I think, and this is where I think us as veterans, as a veteran community, we got to probably do a little bit better job of, we want people to be confident coming out, but don't overblow it. Don't make them think too highly of themselves, so that, because then we're setting them up for failure, So anyway, that's probably not what a lot of people want to hear, but
I think I couldn't agree with you more. That is the one. I mean, some people fall into great gigs that just perfectly align.
Right. Yeah.
Especially if you want to do something that's not, just go into BD for a prime.
Right. Yeah.
With guys like us, or
your typical 06, right? That's what he's going to go do. If he's going to stay in the defense, he's going to go be a BD guy, which is great. They need that. Fine.
Right. If you don't want to do that, then
there's a whole lot more to the world, right? And there's a whole lot more that the world needs. So the other thing I think I would tell them to do is really go figure out who they are. Because part of the problem that we just described is because people have attached their rank or their position to their identity, instead of like, hey man, go spend some time figuring out how you're wired. Like what totally pisses you off, what really energizes you, how do you want to, and if you spend time studying yourself, really studying yourself, and there's people out there that are really good at it, helping you decipher it, I think that could also be super helpful too. And I spent a lot because I didn't have a freaking clue what I was going to do, because I knew I just wasn't going to be happy long term as an airline guy. I knew to go do it, but I was like, I'll get bored fast. And so I got to figure something out. I got 4 kids, man. I can't be jacking around either. So anyway,
That's great. Well, if folks want to, connect with you, see what you're doing, how's the best way to, follow Albers Aerospace?
Yeah, for sure. Thank you. We're on LinkedIn. Albers Aerospace is there. You can email me at jalbers@albers.aero. Those are the best 2 places. I think we got a website, albers.aero, and see what we're doing. Yeah, I'm available. Love talking to folks, and especially vets. I'm really keen on helping. I want to help guys transition out of the service and into chapter 2, because I got a quote unquote extra help, and I found out a couple of years later it wasn't that good. And I have a son-in-law who's at E5 in the Air Force, and what hit me was like, crap, man, I got extra that he's not going to get. And so we gotta do better. And I just believe that we're a people group. You can almost spot military people, man. Still got short hair most of the time. You can just see them. And we're a people group, man. We're a people group just like an ethnicity, and we should take care of each other. We should do a better job of, I think if you get a retirement check, the DOD, after you've been retired for 3 years, ought to make you have to mentor a couple people a year to keep getting your check.
I like it.
But you can't do it right away. You can't do it right away because you don't know anything when you come out, man. You're reset to 0. It takes about 3 years before you figure out, like, oh. And some of it, you just got to go learn yourself. Doesn't matter what people tell you. You're going to go bump into walls. You're going to trip, fall, do all that. So, yeah, it's another crazy idea I have. So, anyway.
I like it. That's great. Well, thanks, John. This has been fun. Look forward to come out to Colorado, get you a beer, or when I'm done.
Yeah, man.
Let's
We should do it. Yeah. So, thanks for having me. It's always fun to talk to Air Force guys, man. I got a little connection, like tweet time. And yeah, thanks for what you're doing. This is good to get this information out, right? Like, talk about the industrial base. I think it's a national security issue. It's an underlying national security issue. If you haven't read Freedom Sports, go read it.
Perfect.
Yeah.
On my list. All right. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, buddy.